Sayatu, Washte. Good evening, everybody. Wanakcha Washtewi, Imachiapi, Washichu Chaje, Helene Gaddie, Imachiapi. I come from the Oglala Lakota Nation, and this evening I'm going to share some teachings with you that I've learned over the years from family members and school and community. So I'm just going to get started. This evening, sharing with you all Lakota astronomy and the plant nation. And wanted to start by introducing myself, who I am. I am Oglala Lakota. I come from the Romero and the Quiver Tioshpae on my Ate side. My late Ate was Robert Quiver Sr., and my ina side, I come from the Barrunner Rock Tioshpae, and my ina was late Leola Barrunner Quiver. And my unchi, Sophia Romero, who was my dad's mom, raised me since I was a very, very small baby. She had me since I was an infant, and she was my first mom and taught me about life and showed me how to be a good human. I live in Lost Dog with my husband, Waylon Gaddie, and my two Takoja boys, my Toshka, Lyndon, and Blaze, and my Chinkshi, Dylan, who is our neighbor, and he's right there with us. And I work at Generations Indigenous Ways. It's a Native nonprofit which was founded in 2013 in the Pine Ridge Reservation, and we do informal science education. And right now we are in the teachings of Lakota astronomy and historical geology and creation stories. So before we get started, I wanted to share this with you all. These are our customs in Lakota country. When you see this slide up in the slideshow, stand up, move around. If we were in a group together, we would greet each other. And right now it's evening time, so it's Ktayatu Washte, good evening. And if there's somebody in the room with you, greet them, shake their hands or hug them, or high fives, elbows. We were doing elbows in the virtual time. So just wanted to share that with you all so that it's good to sit for a long time, but sometimes it's not so good. So when you see this, you can take a break and stand up and move around. Our organization was founded, we do science STEM education. We're an affiliate of Seventh Generation Fund, founded in 2013, located in the Oglala Lakota Nation, and we serve the Pine Ridge Reservation and surrounding areas. We want to decrease the high school dropout rate and bring more Lakota youth into STEM fields, into becoming good humans and taking care of the land. We have a mission to enhance Lakota culture through Indigenous sciences in our lands here in the Seven Council Fires. And so that's just a little bit of the history of my work at Generations Indigenous Ways and where I come from. And right now, we're teaching about astronomy, storytelling, birds, and the winter plants. And we learn according to how our ancestors lived their lives and incorporate the sciences into each of those seasons. So a lot of the a lot of the calendars, a lot of the curriculum in the schools will use, state standards and different things like that. And through research and testing these theories, this model was brought out and found successful and peer-reviewed. It's the Lakota ways of knowing, and this is how we teach our Indigenous sciences. Before Generations Indigenous Ways began, I was an intern at Oglala Lakota College, and we were tasked to do outreach. and we brought together elders from across the reservation, and all of them have gone on to the Star Nation now. But they helped us form this, and anything we do in Lakota country, in Lakota lands, we always ask our elders. And so I wanted to also excuse myself if there are elders in the Zoom, in the virtual teaching, to excuse me for speaking in front of you. And also, thank you for allowing me to share with you all. So we began with our story, and I know we're talking about Lakota astronomy, but it's important to know where we come from as Lakota people. And we have always been here. I put this here, the blue dot, the exact location of the Oglala Lakota Nation current day is right in the heart of Turtle Island, or, what's known as the North American continent. And overall, we have always been here. Unchi Maka is our home, and she provides everything that we need with us taking care of her in return. And so this is our story. In school, you're going to learn history, world history, American history, any type of history. This is our history, our Indigenous Lakota history. And in order to understand, the stars, to understand our teachings, we also have to know where we come from. Before the colonial times, we were all over our continent, and we followed with the Buffalo Nation. They say that we are, sometimes we're known as people of the Buffalo or Buffalo Nations, hunters and gatherers, nomads. There's different names that have been given to us, but we follow the buffalo, and they know where to go. If there were no fences, no roads, just open country, the buffalo would be exactly where they needed to be according to the stars as their calendar. And that's how we were. And then our lives were impacted. And a lot of our information was almost lost. In 1776, this new country was formed in the middle of North American continent, which is known today as the United States. And they had this Declaration of Independence, and all these articles and laws that came with their new country. And in one of those was the article where they made treaties with foreign nations and independent nations. And they made one with our nation, the Oceti Shakowee, or the Tetawan Nation. It's known in the Western history books as the Great Sioux Reservation. And of course, most of us, know that this is not a word that we use for ourselves. It is a word that was used to label our people. But this is the original treaty territory of 1851. And then later, because they modified, or, according to their own, their laws, they broke their laws and revised this treaty to the 1868 treaty, where you can see the boundaries smaller, because they knew the riches of this land and wanted it, basically. And so we were further moved into a smaller land. And then there was right in the middle is our sacred hills. And in our Black Hills, there were things that happened where the United States found minerals that they wanted, like how they did to other tribes, took what they wanted without asking and destroyed everyone and everything in their way. And then in 1876, there was a big gathering up here in the middle of up here in the northern part of our nation, where people came together to strategize and were attacked by the 7th Cavalry, and ultimately came out with the victory. When that happened, it was like a series of events that took place where ultimately our people were put on reservations and terrorized and tormented, and their ultimate goal was to try to eradicate and totally wipe us out. through boarding school. We had our grandparents survived the boarding schools. They survived the relocation. And during that time, whenever there was relocation, there was a gathering in our cities of our natives who formed organizations and stood up for civil rights there. And here in Lakota country, one of the major events that took place was the Wounded Knee occupation. And I always put this slide up on any presentation I have because I always give credit and give a shout out to our Unchis here in Oglala Lakota country for standing up for our rights in the late 60s and 70s with the Oglala Sioux Civil Rights Organization. They were tired of our people being terrorized and tired of our culture being suppressed. And so there was this occupation that took place in Wounded Knee on the 27th of February to May 8th of that year, where our people took a stand. Our brothers and sisters, our older relatives stood up for our rights. Following that, there were several events that took place, but in 1978, there was the Freedom of Religion Act that came out of that. And that gave us Indigenous people across the continent rights to be proud of who we are. And there were several families within our tribes who held on to our culture and held on to our teachings. And I always appreciate that. They were, and also our relatives who survived in the boarding schools and made their way home so that we can live. And then another big event in our history was in 1980 with the Black Hills Claim, where the United States admitted that they stole our land and tried to give us money. And to this day, we will not take that money because you can't put a dollar value on our sacred Black Hills. And I share this because our astronomy in our Lakota constellations, they are connected to our sacred sites in our hills, in our beautiful Black Hills, our sacred lands. And they, with other neighboring tribes also, this is a place where we go for our prayers and we are connected to there. And we have to do everything we can to protect our Black Hills to this day. Another point in history was in 2016, whenever all of the Indigenous nations from across the continents came together again in our Oceti-Sakowin in North Dakota and South Dakota on the Standing Rock Reservation, and took a stand against the big major corporations and the United States government for trying to desecrate our land and discriminate against our people. And we're here today. We've survived through everything, all the chaos that has been thrown at our people. And we as Lakota people are the fastest, I always say, we're the fastest adapting species. Indigenous people are the fastest adapting species. When I say species, we're all species of the world. With us, our animals, our plants, the reptiles, we're different species that walk on this earth. And Indigenous people have had to adapt. We had to adapt and learn how to walk into two worlds. And so here in our ancestral lands, we have our dialects and our Oyate, and our Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, we have our D dialect, N dialect, and L dialect. And here we are in Oglala, Lakota. I am tuning in here from current day Pine Ridge Reservation, Oglala, Lakota Nation in the Oceti-Sakowin. So, and these also have later on, I'll share about how they are connected to one of the constellations, these dialects in one of the stories. So everybody, I'm just gonna say, Dayatu Washte, go ahead, stand up. If there's somebody in your room, somebody in your home with you, if not, give yourself high five. If there's somebody present, say good day, good evening, Dayatu Washte. And so then we talk about our relationship to the stars. And I really like this. You can Google this. I found this on Google, which is pretty awesome. So, and always give credit where credit is due. But I love this illustration of how it pieces all of our Lakota constellations to the sacred sites. This is our sacred Black Hills here, our Kahasapa, and every sacred site, almost every sacred site, has a correlation to the Lakota astronomy. And when we're talking about Lakota astronomy, like right now, we're in the winter camp, we're in the constellations when, after the winter solstice coming into the spring equinox. And it's a time whenever we harvest our certain plants, and they correlate with these constellations. So the directions, and I took this straight out of Mr. Ron Goodman's book and his presentation on his book. You can find it at the Oglala Lakota College Library or at Singing Horse in Manderson or Sioux Trading Post, I believe, in Rapid City. It's the Lakota Astronomy book. And a lot of the teachings that the illustrations that I share, they are straight out of his presentation. And he did a very good job at going around and interviewing elders in Rosebud and Pine Ridge and coming up with a very good Lakota astronomy book. And so this talks about how all of the directions come together in looking at in our culture and looking at the directions and looking at how we are connected to everything. So we have the sky up above, and we have Maka, the earth down below, and all of the directions, and ourself in the middle, which would be the 7. And 7 is one of our sacred numbers, with the 7 values, 7 rights, 7, and it coincides with that. So in our Lakota directions, we have this medicine wheel. You can see these on, now I see them on eBay everywhere. It's very common that about this time people are going to be making medicine wheels. This is our medicine wheel. A lot of times our graduates or people who are getting their Lakota name, their Lakota chaje would have a medicine wheel attached to their feather or plume when they receive their Lakota chaje. And when the teaching that was shared with me was, when we are going to our sacred sites, or we're going to do anything, we use our plume or our feather and our medicine wheel, and that's how the grandfathers, the grandmothers recognize us by our Lakota name, our spirit name. And so these are the colors that correlate with the directions in our way. And everything is circular, that if you think about anything that we do, our calendar, our way of life, everything we do is in a circular. Even our homes were round and circular. So everything comes around full circle, and everything is in a motion that has a balanced equilibrium. In our teachings with the Earth and star constellations, what happens in the stars is we should be doing that below. And when we're visiting our sacred places, when the constellations are aligned, then we should be taking our part in that also. And a good example is, how the teepee is constructed. You have the bottom part, and it is symmetrical on top. And when we're at camp, I always tell our young campers that we're connecting to ourselves and we're getting strength. And when we're in our lodges, this just isn't a a tent to camp out in at a campground, but it was our home. And if you imagine, we are on our Unchimaka and we are in our lodges and we're connected, and each of our poles has a significant, it has a significance and it has a meaning to it, as well as our covering. And our children, when they are able, and us as well, all of us, when we're able to stay in our lodges, we bring strength to ourselves. Also, our ancestors can bring strength to us because we're reconnecting to that. And it is, in a sense, we get like a harmony or a balance, a calm balance, and grounding, if you will, a strength. And if you can imagine, when we're going into like even a powwow, a grand entry, everything we do is in a clockwise position. And as we're going in a clockwise position, the celestial movement is counterclockwise. So, and as a scientist and a person who studies this, I still get confused about how our Earth goes around in a way that is backwards from how we go around. And everybody learns. My ate always says that everybody learns in different levels and to your level of understanding. So that's how I understand that maybe I'm not supposed to understand that. So, but that's how it goes. So it's in a mirrored way, celestial movements. And you see this on beadwork and in symmetry. Everything is as above is below. You'll see the same. And these 3 teepee poles here inside the lodge, where when you first put your lodge up, you have the base or the tripod. And these have a significance to different stars. So when I showed about the 3 dialects, one of the teachings of these could be the 3 grandmothers that brought our languages to us, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota. Can also be where the poles are facing the stars, the 3 stars, Wichakpi, Owajinaji, Ktayatu Wichakpi, and Umpu Wichakpi, which would be the North Star, the evening star, and the morning star. And so whenever we put our lodges up, then each of the poles that go up have a significant meaning and a correlation to our values and how we should be living our everyday way of life. So again, there's the teepee or the our lodge, and each of the poles that go around, and how you can see as above is below on there, and where it comes together with the rope or the umbilical cord, if you would, that grounds us to the ground, to Unchimaka. If you want to stand up, you're welcome to stand up, move around. If not, Dayatu Washte. To those of you who just were able to join us, we're learning about Lakota star knowledge and the plants. So as we get into learning about plants, our earth also, we have to understand Unchimaka and how she moves around the sun. And I guess here's a trivia question. How many stars are in our solar system? Our solar system, meaning we have our 9 planets, 8, 9, I guess 1 dwarf planet. So how many stars do we have in our constellation? You can put it in the chat if you will. Good job. Good job. I like the way you're thinking. Yep, we have 1, and I gave it away too. The sun is the only star in our constellation. And our sun, our Earth, Unchimaka, we go around all the way around, and the sun will beam at the Earth at different angles. And right now you can see the sun making its way back north. So when the sun passes through different constellations, that's how we know when the seasons change. On December 21st, the sun passed through Diomede, which was the beginning of winter, and when we would start to harvest our chashasha. And we can share our Ohunkankan stories. We can learn about our creation stories and our history. They're not just, a lot of times if you see a book, it would say Lakota mythology, and it was like, but that's our history. And Western science proves our history to be true because of the historical geological events and impacts that happened, and our winter counts that took note of them, of like falling star, of different events where you can find it on different winter counts of things that happen. So as the earth moves around, you get to spring, the constellation would go through Chashasha Ipusye, or Aries and Taurus constellation, which would be around March 21st. And the growing season the temperatures would change, different plants come about during that time, and we would be preparing for summer ceremonies, summer activities. So the growing season really, there is an impact on our growing season that we are experiencing right now in Lakota country in climate change and with the extreme heat. And in the weather forecast, there's rain in the forecast instead of snow. So it's fairly different. And the earth is on an axis, so it's not straight up, it's tilted. And if you look at our lodges are tilted about that same, the 23.5 whenever it comes out. And so our people knew how to, they were scientists. They knew how to do all of this. And you can take the long road and do all the trig, which I did, to prove that. And it's pretty amazing. And they knew already. So in our equinox, which I was talking about, which is about March 21st, sometimes the 12-hour, that's whenever, the 12-hour daylight is equal. Sometimes it might be before the 21st or after the 21st, but that around that time, March 21st. And so it's usually equal day, equal night whenever the sun strikes through there. So that's just a little bit about Unchimaka and her relation around the sun. So when we're talking about this Lakota cosmos, this is our sacred Black Hills right here. And around, or I would point around this way, here's the uplift here. And this was an image out of Ron Goodman's book. Whoops, excuse me. It clicked on its own. And it shows how the center is in the Black Hills, where we come from, the emergence cave in our creation story with Wind Cave, and from the ground, and how the Black Hills uplifted. And in the constellations, it's the Great Race. And you can see in the background how there's a circle in the constellations, and it has all different, like the Pegasus is part of that, and Taurus, there's one of the Matotipila stars, Pollock is part, or Sirius and Pollock, they're part of that big circle of stars, excuse me. And it correlates with the racetrack around the Black Hills. Inside the Black Hills, you can see we have Peshla, and there's other maps that are detailed, but I just really love this. I actually screenshotted this right out of Google Maps, where you can get on your phone and go to your Google Maps and screenshot the Black Hills, and it'll show you. This is an old image which needs to be updated from the Lakota Astronomy book, because it is no longer Harney Peak, it is now Blackout Peak. And then you have Peshla and Matotipila way up here. These are our black kills and how they sit currently within the states, the current states. So when we go back to this map, you can see in here Peshla, and then you'll see the salamander and the turtle. These are natural occurring valleys in the Black Hills that have constellations, the baby girl turtle, and the salamander to correlate with them. We also have the big racetrack, and this constellation that correlates to the racetrack, the constellations, I should say, talks about one of our creation stories on how the two-legged won the race. And it wasn't the humans two-legged that helped win the race. It was actually, all of that. There was an imbalance in the earth, and an imbalance for power. And so the people, the beings, the species, two-legged and four-legged, decided to have a race to see who would be in charge, per se, or who would be the dominant, who would be who would have say. And so they ran around the Black Hills, and this, each time they ran around the Black Hills, it uplifted a little bit more. And along the way, there was a track that was formed, and you can see it today from the blood of their feet, their paws, their feet, their hooves. There was a bloodstained rock formation that formed. In Western science, it's called the Spearfish Formation. We know it as the Great Race, and it's caused, according to Western science, it is caused by tissues of mammals, animals, and the shells and the tissues and the bones that form that real deep red. And it correlates with our creation story of the blood and the from the feet and the hooves around the Black Hills. And it's like a valley, the Spearfish Formation. As you go into Rapid City, or as you go into Hot Springs, you'll see that along the edges where it's a real red indent. And you can see it on here. You can't see the red, but you can see that valley all the way around our Black Hills. And that correlates with the big racetrack in the circle of stars in the Black Hills with the Great Race. And so it was the two-legged that won that race for it was the magpie that won that race for the two-legged. But with that winning, with that the celebration of being the winner, also came the responsibility to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, to advocate for those who can't. So the humans became the dominant, and it is our responsibility to advocate for Unchimaka and for our plant and our animal relatives. And that's told in our history. And so we take that as, as our responsibility. And if you think about it, it is always Indigenous people that are going to be standing up, and without fear and all the courage. So it's a really beautiful story to share, and it's in our Black Hills. As you come into the Black Hills and you see that red paint, that red wase in that valley, that's where that came from. And that's the constellations that circle in the sky. So you can see that here in this image around the edge, the Great Race. So I'm going to skip through here and just keep going a little bit. And then we get back in. Here is a close-up of Peshla. And whenever we're talking about Peshla, our falling star, when we talk about the constellations of falling star and his Ina, who was from here, from Earth, who went up to, there's different, one of the stories talks about how there were two women who met people from, or they met their partners from the Star Nation. And her partner, one of the stories was that her partner was actually the North Star. And she became with child, but she got lonesome when she was up in the hills, and she pulled up. She wasn't supposed to pull up any plants or anything in the Star Nation. And one day she did, and she looked down. She pulled up a Timsala plant, and she looked down and she saw the earth, and she got lonesome for her people, and she wanted to go home. And so she braided Timsala, one of our traditional plants. And when she braided all of these Timsala, she used that as a rope to come home to earth. And while she was climbing down on her Timsala rope, she fell. It was too short, or it broke, or to where she fell. And when she hit the earth, she didn't survive, but her baby did. He was born, and he was called, he became Falling Star Boy. He was raised amongst us, and then it's told that his father was so heartbroken from her leaving that he kneeled down and he became the North Star. And there's also one of the stories that talks about the North Star being very significant and watching over all of the different stars. But he stands still in the middle of the sky, and all of the stars dance around him, or they move around him. And when you look for him, he is close to the Big Dipper. So on this, here's that big circle of stars. And this image is also from Mr. Goodman's book. I like it. They have pretty decent illustrations. So in this, you see the Great Racetrack all the way around, and then you'll see Tayamni, the three parts. They say he's a big buffalo or a big monster. One of the stories where he stole the chief's daughter, and only, the one warrior had to go and get the chief's daughter back, and Falling Star Boy, and so he could marry the chief's daughter, is one of the stories. And one of the stories here, this one here, the seven little girls, correlates with that constellation correlates with the sacred site that's coming up here in March with Blackout Peak. So all the way through here, you see the Milky Way, and right now it is laying. It's really bright. If you go out tonight, if there's no sky, no star, no clouds, and you see all the stars, it is just vibrant, just very beautiful. You can see it in plain view, and you can see the Big Dipper, or the Wichakyapi, standing straight up, as it would in the north. I'm looking north here behind me, and then the Big Dipper, or excuse me, the Milky Way will go across our Wanagi Tachanku. And I put this, this is one of our, he's an elder, looks like it to me, a very tall, strong wagacha, or chawaka, or cottonwood tree, or Populus deltoides, for all the different names for the cottonwood tree. And one year at the Sundance, when I was little, one of my unchis told us about, to look out for the Milky Way at night. Look for the Milky Way, and you'll see the crutch in the middle, and it lays like a cottonwood tree. If you see the cottonwood tree with the crutch in the middle, and that's how the Milky Way is. And in our story, it talks about how our people make their way back to the Star Nation. They have to go through a point, and there's a crutch in the middle. And if you lived a good life, you're going to go on. And if you haven't finished anything that you were supposed to, then you have to come back and finish it. And so there's two ways there. And so and you can see the tree whenever you look up at the Milky Way, or the Wanagi Tachanku, you'll see that cottonwood in it, and it's really beautiful. And right in the middle, And you're like, oh yeah, that's where the champa or the chokecherry branches that represent life would sit in the crutch of the Milky Way. And whenever you look at a cottonwood and you break off a branch and open it up, you'll see that little star in the middle. In Western science, it is the tree that gets struck by the lightning the most because it has the strongest water source. And it is very, very significant for our people, not only to find water. It's a good source. I remember my grandma would say, there must be good water there because cottonwoods will just grow. And see, if you grow one cottonwood and they keep growing, there's water under there. That's a good sign for water. That's how you know, because they are attracted to water and they have the strongest energy. And we know that our Wakia Oyate, or our thunder beings, they have that connection and with the cottonwood because of the energy of it. So it's used for one of our sacred ceremonies, our sacred rites, to help us take our prayers and carry those messages back so that our people can continue to live and can continue to walk in a good way and heal and thrive and live again. So when you look at the little branches off of there, look inside and you'll see that star. And it's connected also to, and look at the leaves of it. And right now it's wintertime, unfortunately. So you can't really look at the leaves right now, but whenever they're budding out, which is kind of scary, some of them are in February, but you'll see the big, like a watershed, all of the waters in the creeks you can see in a watershed. You'll see it on the teepee, or excuse me, on the tree. And then you can also make a teepee out of it too, because it forms around and you see that connection. And a lot of the people, if you wanted to, the Populus deltoides, I like to say, because that's the Latin name, or the Wagacha, it grows very fast and provides shade, and it serves as a, as a safety. And overall, it's a beautiful, beautiful, from the trees, I guess in science we call it dendrology. It's a soft wood, and it would provide shade, and also in that ceremony. So then the next plant that correlates with constellations is the chashasha. And I guess this is about the same as the regular picture, but I tried to blow it up a little bit so you can see. You can be mistaken if if you're just not paying attention. You can accidentally pick up a snakeberry or a wild rose. The chashasha is really unique. It's red dogwood, chashasha ibusie, or red willow, it's also known as, and it's with the constellation of Aries in the star nation, or chashasha ibusie. When the sun passes through this constellation, then it's time for us to make our way to Blackout Peak in the spring equinox. And this plant here can only be harvested in the winter. I'm pretty sure people probably harvest it in the summer for different uses, maybe whatever they might, like dream catchers, or using it for arrows or something like that. But in the winter time, it's got its medicinal properties, and not just for our traditional tobacco, but also like the aspirin, or the, not ibuprofen, but aspirin. There's two different types there. One's an NSAID and one's like a takes care of your heart rate and fevers and different things like that. But this one here would be for that, to help with alleviating headaches on the top side. And it's actually the inner bark of this that you would harvest for making chashasha. And the chashasha, that's our source of tobacco. And whenever for our young lady relatives and our female relatives, whenever we are on our monthly cleansing, we wouldn't harvest our chashasha. We wouldn't be around our relatives who are doing this, and out of respect and also for that medicine. So and today it's really important that we teach those protocols to our young relatives so that they will know. Sometimes we might not take that lightly, but that should be known. That so there's protocols for that. And then also whenever we are going out and harvesting, to make an offering so that and only take what we are supposed to take. Don't take more than what you need. And we just finished up the winter, the Wania Tuwichoti Generations Indigenous Ways Winter Camp. And we had 16 campers and mentors, or junior mentors, I should say, that harvested chashasha, and along with all of the adults. So pretty much almost 20 people. And these teachings were taught by Mahasani, my husband, Waylon, and my Tui Donette took time and took the campers out to get their chashasha and bring them back. And also to teach the other campers that might not have been taking part in this to not run around, to treat it like how we would for anything that we're doing according to protocol, to respect the energy of that process. And when we take care of these plants, then they take care of us. And the chashasha has a story of how it came to us also. And I believe that that's going to be shared in the coming weeks. And so I just wanted to share that part and tune into the coming weeks on how chashasha came to us as us Lakota people. So when we chart again, here's that link to the lands again. And of course, these are the constellations up here. There's that big circle again, all the way around the Black Hills. And then we have Blackout Peak up here, number 2. We're getting ready to go up there. And then the winter right here, Chashasha Ipusie. This constellation, this is Matotipila. This would be on June 21st, this constellation here. Diomede is about now, right here. There's the 3 grandmothers inside of Diomede. This is actually, if you know Western constellations, this is Orion's belt. And in his little belt here, there's the 3 Unchis that brought our languages, Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, to our people. And then out here, we have the 7 little girls. Over here, you can't really see it over here, but this right here is Gemini that correlates with Matotipila. And at a certain point that it looks like a horn. And this was also like Greyhorn Butte, the original name. They coincide to make a buffalo skull horn. I don't know the date or what direction, but in the sky, it turns a certain way where they look like 2 horns looking at each other. It's pretty amazing. So, and then this is the plant, the Teamsilla plant that I shared earlier about the lady that Falling Star's mom, who came down in the middle of the Big Dipper, was where she pulled that plant up. And scientists have proven that there's a black hole there. And that's the story of, like Unchit Kowi, or the midwife, or the helper lady who helps bring us to our parents, who helps with childbirth. And it's also the origin of the word Tui. So your Tui, that's why I'm proud to be your Tui. Your Tui helps with that, helps the mother take care of their children, helps them bring their child to be. And that's where that word comes from. this is the story, or this is the plant of Timsala. And this image here is, I like this because of the Unchi who has the Timsala and the story of how the Timsala came to be. And I am going to take time to share that because I think we have some Timsala teachings coming up. This one, on how the Timsala came to be to the people and came to an elder lady. So in the coming weeks, we'll be able to share the story of how the Timsala came to the people. But they came to an Unchi, and then she was able to feed the people. And that's how the Timsala came to the people. I share Pejikota because of the Wagacha, the cottonwood tree that was shared before, and anything that we do in our culture, like at the beginning of this this teaching, we aziliad, we have our little shells with us, and because we're sharing stories of our ancestors and sharing the teachings of our people and the teachings that our relatives taught us. We try our best to share according to how we were taught, because our culture is oral and we have to do our best. And I know we have our relatives who are fluent speakers and can share it all in Lakota, and we're really blessed to be able to still have them do that. And the Pajikota, this is the common male sage here. And then these ones came off of a sage brush. And on the side, the little fringed sage is female sage. There's also two other types of sage that grow in different places. Artemisia cana is their scientific name. And they have the male sage is the common sage, or the cudweed sage. It is the common sage. Only the females would use the fringed female sage. That's our medicine, and our men relatives, our male relatives. This isn't for you. So if you see a recipe that has female sage, that is not meant for our male relatives in the cookbooks and different things like that. It is, you use the male sage. Or from the sagebrush, I'm pretty sure that this has a different scent. And whenever you go out to harvest your sage, there was a teaching from a relative that came one summer and shared about the tioshpai of the sage. And there's the elders, the tall ones, and then there's the young ones that are just now coming up. And you want to find the ones in the middle, so that it can keep a balance in the tioshpai of the sage, to not to overharvest, and to try not to get them when they seed, so that they can come back every year. And always cut them. If you notice, these are cut. They're not, no roots are taken, because we want them to grow back every year. And we will use these in tea. We might, to help our relatives, or we might, use them in a recipe, but ultimately, and they purify the area, not just for energy wise, but they also have an antibacterial. So they are pretty equivalent, or even better than Lysol. And if you have like this hacky cough, or your children are coughing, if you just boiled sage, simmered it on your stove, and let that aroma go in the air of your home, it cleanses that, and you feel better. It's all, you have different medicines that it might be mixed with. But I wanted to share that because we use that whenever we're talking about the wagacha, or the different, even whenever we're out harvesting plants, we might azilia, just to keep that area good. So I talked about protocols earlier in harvesting our plants, and about our fellow my fellow female relatives to respect that. And whenever we're teaching our young ones to make our auxilia kits like this, to know those protocols also, to keep that with them. Whenever we're harvesting our pejikota, we're using it to go out and harvest our plants. And in the wintertime, we also harvest our wood for bow staves, and for maybe, somebody is getting ready for summer ceremony and they might be getting their chanupa, then that's when they would get their chanupa. And the reason for that is the organic chemistry part of the plant. It's dormant. So if you got it, and when the wakia come back, the wakia oyate strike unchimaka, then they wake up all the relatives, and they, it's time to get up, and it's time to be rejuvenated, and those plants will grow again, and you can't harvest after that. So I believe that we are out of time in our area if we do get a thunderstorm tonight, that to harvest our chashasha. I don't know. That's just according to the weather people on the local news, that there's a predicted thunderstorm in the plains here in the Lakota country. I know up in the Black Hills there was thunder snow today, so we might be out of time to harvest our chanshasha according to our protocols. So in our annual migration, these are, what I was talking about earlier, the chanshasha ipusie would be in the springtime, and the 7 little girls would be at Black Elk Peak welcoming back the thunders. And then the racetrack, or Changleshka Wakan, the sacred hoop or diamini, would be in that certain time. And then Mato Tipila during the summertime, during the summer solstice. And the fall time would be a sacred site visit in the fall time. And there isn't a constellation that correlates with Mato Paha, with Bear Butte. But I always think about the Big Dipper whenever, how it is whenever we're going up to Mato Paha, and think about those constellations up there. And I just wanted to go back here. Let me see if I can rewind a little bit and go back to the Black Hills. In our Black Hills, all of our plants that we harvest that correlate with our constellations, they are not found a lot of places. They need to be protected. There's places in the Black Hills that are impacted by mining, that and on our reservation as well, where these traditional plants will grow, that are being impacted by human impacts. Even the development in current day Mini Luzaha. And if you look on here, I'm gonna zoom in. This is Peshla here, and there's lichens there. If anybody know, I'm not talking about the vampire lichens, but I guess you would say like the plant or the fungus lichen. When you go up on Peshla, you can see the purity of the land of where that prayer takes place, when, for that constellation site, that sacred site. The purity of that land is still there because it takes hundreds of, 1,000 years for a lichen to form. And it's there. It's, sometimes you don't want to step on it. You step lightly to go and make your prayer. And in these places, because the plants there, that shows how the purity of it, and the trees around it are so old and are elder, I guess you can say. They hold the secrets, and human development is really impacting these If you look here, the turtle has no legs. It's been um, developed, and the salamander relative is being developed. And so these valleys, these natural valleys that have significance, they have constellations that correlate to them, are impacted as well. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And also over here, whenever you're coming into Buffalo Gap, the natural entrance of the Black Hills, there's a lot of industry, or taking mine gravel pits and different things there where there shouldn't be, where there's a place there of prayer that's being disrupted by that. And also up here at Matopaha, close by, there's also places that are being impacted. So, oh yeah, Marlena, I see you're in the chat whenever you're talking about the male and female in the plant. For the female sage, it's just known as the female sage and the male sage. Those are their names for them. So yeah, they would be of both species, but for uses, it's just known as female sage. So, or Frigidaire female sage, fringid sage, but in our uses, it's the female sage. Yeah, that's a good observation. So let me come back here to this slide again. This constellation, it shows it pretty good here on the slide of Gemini, as you can see. So if you go out now, right here in Lakota country, if there are, I heard the wind pick up, kind of sounds pretty strong out there. If you go out now in the eastern horizon, you'll see the Diomede coming up, and you'll also see Gemini, or Matotipula, really, really clear. The two sisters, you'll see that out there really clear right now. And Pleiades and Chanshasha Ipusie. And it's still kind of in the horizon. So I can imagine how, whenever the sun comes up in that constellation, how you can estimate that, and how our people estimated that. So that is whenever the seasons changed. Whenever we knew the time of the seasons changing, then we were able to plan ahead, able to plan to when we can harvest our chashasha in the winter, and then when we get to spring, whenever we can harvest our timsala or our ichakbihu in the summertime. And all of these come up and there's also summer constellations too, that were shared with me just more recently, and I'm still learning those to share them with people. But one of them is in, like a great square. There's another one that is in a form of a dragonfly, and the butterfly, the great butterfly, that comes up in June. That's really, really clear. So our people and each Tiosh by extended family, or Oshpaye or Otuahe, like town as we have currently, or prayer circle, or whatever you consider a group, I guess you can say, has different teachings on our constellations, and have different teachings on harvesting and different things. And I'm just sharing with you what I know about these things, and how they are grown, and where they're harvested, and what they correlate with. Okay. So back to this. Whenever this is the pejijota, or I guess you can say the sage, the male sage. When we put them in kits, you could see that this brown bag, it was purchased. Harvested by Lakota, but purchased because you only harvest enough for what you need. And then sometimes you have to go and purchase more. So I'm pretty thankful for the places that have it for us to purchase, but it's really good to harvest your own because you know the energy that's put into that medicine and you know how it was harvested and the goodness of it and following the protocols of it. These young campers over here are out harvesting chashasha, and whatever isn't harvested, it's usually put back and so it can grow again. Never One thing I wanted to add was whenever you do use anything, never throw it in the trash. If you're making tea, if you're making jelly, perhaps with our mints or anything like that, you don't throw it in the trash. Always give it back to Unchimaka. Even if you happen to buy it on Amazon or if it was gifted to you, never throw it in the trash. Always give it back to Unchimaka and say thank you that you were able to harvest that medicine. So I'm going to end there.